Good evening. Good afternoon pa pala. This is a national training. And without much ado, I am Dr. Moral live here from Cebu City. Mga kapwa ko kaguro, how are you? So allow me to share now my uh, PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So is it clear now, Sir Nueva, Sir Paulo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, good afternoon, everyone, especially the the teachers of the Department of Education. Remember that once you're always a teachers, always a students. Okay. So I am here now to facilitate the first course on the self-regulated learning theory. And in Magister Service, we are also connected with Global Educators Professional Development and also as helping you on how to craft research in the field of uh, education, okay, in IREO, the International Researchers or Educators Organization Incorporated. All right, so kumusta na po kayong lahat for the Department of Educators? Department of Education rather. If you are a teachers 1 to 3, give me a heart if you are with me because I also been a teacher 1. Then after 3 years, I became teacher 3. Then after 1 year, I was promoted as a master teacher. So this is now my 6th year as an MT in the Department of Education. So let me start now. If you were able to ask yourself as a self-regulated learning in the new normal kahit wala na pong COVID-19. In this uh, training, you are expected to gain recent and relevant information on topics related to self-regulation. And remember, there is no perfect teaching strategy. You can always say that there is a perfect strategy or teaching strategy when the objectives of your lesson plan are being carried out. That's why you need to know about the relevant information and existing studies. And at the same time, you'll become familiar with the recent research result on self-regulation, and I'll be imparting to you on how I applied SRL in my own context. We'll also be make meaningful connections with other educators and researchers in terms of self-regulation skills. So if you know how to control your temper, you know also how to guide your students' temper because not all the times or not 100% of your students could catch up your topic or your lessons. That's why as a teacher and a teacher researcher, you need to reflect on the components of SRL or self-regulated learning based on its models. Okay, so in many ways, our students are given assignments like those in most schools. And you know what? How can we try to use variety of teaching strategies during instruction and change strategies when needed? It is normal for us when we change our strategies, okay? Because we type of teachers are expected to improve the quality of our instruction. And the question is, how can we how can we teachers self-regulate? And one of the most important ways of teaching SRL in the classroom is by sharing our feelings. So yung mga feelings or pandamdamin po natin, okay, should be shared as part of the experience with our students so that it can help them to learn and identify the different labels of feelings. In other words, we are helping our students to learn how to learn, okay? And even teachers, we here, we are participating in Magister Service. It's not only for the certificate. We should cascade our learnings during an in-service training or INSET. Okay, by the way, it's already in depth ed. We are now in fourth quarter. Nakapag-COT na ba kayo? COT. If your answer is yes, let me know by using our chat box. COT, you are familiar with that. I want to see your answer. COT, not yet po. Yes, yung iba from Magsangay. Thank you very much. Yes, all right. Thank you sa mga nag-answers. Okay. Me, myself, as a master teacher, hindi pa rin po ako nagkapag-COT because I prioritize my mentors I am an MT Social Studies teacher po, Araling Panlipunan, and I am mentoring 3, teacher 1. Okay, so again, two factors affecting our profession. Thank you. Not yet po si Ma'am Annalyn. Thank you for your answer. So again, while we are in this field, this is our bread and butter, remember. Our work is our bread and butter, but we have to give social justice to what we are doing. There are two factors affecting learning. First, we cannot give what we do not have. That's why you have to master your area of specialization or subject matter. Second is provide higher levels of motivation. The more you motivate your pupils or students, the more they are eager and willing to learn. So that's why motivation, these are the reason why we teachers, part of it, pampaganyak or pagganyak in our Banghay Aralin. So this is in a form of metacognition. According to some books, there are many ways in talking about metacognition. Meta means many, and or it occurs, okay, after for experimental, something like that. Thinking about thinking, knowledge of the task, awareness of your own ability, and the action you will take, the ability they use to self-regulatory mechanism to ensure the successful completions of the task, such as planning your next move or evaluating the effectiveness of any attempt to move. That is in our lesson plan. In remarks, if the objectives are not carried out, we will put that in our remarks or puna. Okay, so that is how we use our LP as our guiding principle. And if you remember, this is the legal basis that basic education learning community plan, matapos na mag-COVID, okay, mayroong pinaplano ang ating gobyerno on how to continue the quality of education. That's why learning takes place in different skills, self-regulation in terms of goal setting, self-monitoring, self-instruction, and self-reinforcement. Okay, if you observe, pabalik-balik yung word nga, self. Okay, by the way, sa mga nakasabot og Cebuano, hello, you can type there, bisdak ako. Those who can understand Cebuano because I am from Cebu. All right, so taking up responsibilities and more skilled at, okay? So what you're doing as a teacher and have bisdak here. Hello, sir. Sir Reggie Tabuada or Ma'am Reggie Regalado. Hello, ma'am. All right. So what you are doing there in making your lesson plan is that you need to share that one, bisdak ako. You need to share that one to your colleagues because that is one way of enhancing your profession. Okay. So the minds of our learners, he or she is thinking, what is the capital of China? What if our students cannot answer that one? Okay. And so if your students would answer Beijing, okay, but what if others would say Shanghai? Okay, because that's the modern city in China, in mainland China. Do we need to consider the student's answer? Yes or no? What if they will answer Canton? Because Pancit Canton is also part of Chinese culture. We have to accept that one, meaning to say your students are still participating in your discussion. So why did one student answer correctly while other students answer incorrectly or go wrong? So if you observe the response of every individuals of our students, there is what we call a stimuli. So the cognitivists or the proponents of cognitive makes inferences about the mental processes that produce those responses. And furthermore, in this training, I'll be sharing to you the 6 models of self-regulated learning with its empirical supports. Empirical supports meaning those are existing studies and how will we use that one? Again, if you wanted to become a master teacher or head teacher, you have to be a demonstration teacher, just like what you're doing here if you're participating online and also in your school, okay? Boasting your curriculum vitae. All right, so there is what we call transfer of learning. But before that, let's define first, let's clarify terms. What is cognition? It's the mental action of process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and senses. That's the cognition. So if you remember the Bloom's taxonomy and the new version of Bloom, okay, with his contemporary Anderson and Krathwohl, it started with recalling and ends with creating, but with the use of the senses because we contextualize, we integrate. That's normal in our LP. If you will not do that, then the students has lesser understanding. Whereas in sayang class, meron kasing science class, those who are very bright, intelligent, pero meron ding mga sayang class, okay, which are part of our academic journey as a teacher because you will be doing research. Okay, so sayang naman kung sila ay mga tira sa digmaan ng Ukraine at Russia. And what is metacognition? Thinking about thinking. So you will be increasingly useful mechanism. You will enhance the students' learning, both for immediate outcomes and helping our students to understand their own learning processes. So if you let your students memorize, that's good, but you have to ask, what's the significance or what's the implication of this? And so this is borrowed now and the existing modern cognitive field theories, okay, these are what we call the extension of the principles formulated by the Gestalt schools of psychology, deriving from the different association or perspective. Okay, so the cognitive theory understand that learners can be influenced by both internal and external elements. So if you are studying now or you are now in your phase of making an action research, or those who are working with their thesis or dissertations, there is what we call the theoretical and conceptual framework. And you can use the SRL, which is part of the cognitive learning theory that could be anchored in your study. Dahil sa hybrid, alam nyo, hybrid or blended learning, and we have a study on that. And one of the factors that are trending now is the weather that we have. Kapag medyo init, let's say 33 degrees Celsius above ang heat index, so nagbabago ang trend. So we may convert the classes into blended learning or modular, and the next remaining days could be face to face. Okay, so there is transfer of learning, however, it is minimal. So through learning, individuals benefit greatly because it provides them with the capacity to achieve goals and lifestyles, or even the creative capacity to survive. And now, dahil nga BL or blended learning, it's a combination of the traditional way of teaching, which is also important. And the other one is the integration of ICT plus the conventional way of learning or traditional way of learning. So for example, if we are still or you are still using module, it is what we call a flexible curriculum. So my question pala, because here in Cebu City Division, I'm also a writer of our self-learning modules in practical research too. We are still using the module. I do not know with the other division if you are doing that one. And then you modify your strategy, meaning you can still look for other references. Are you still doing or using your module as of now? Answer me with yes or no. May I see your answers from our chat box? Yes, we do. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, but actually, thank you for your answers from Ma'am Floriza, Eileen. Okay, thank you. But actually, when I thought in the night high school, modular was already practiced, but during only case-to-case basis, like pregnant students, working students, those students who have special needs, we do use modular. Okay, but now, since we do not know if the COVID, no, simba ko lang, or na hindi mangyayari yon na mayroon ng maraming variants of COVID, let us have to be flexible. That's why self-regulated, we control, we regulate our students' behavior in such a way that they could understand the learning process. Because tatlo yun, the learner, the learning process, and the learning situation. So the Department of Education, the parents, the guardians, okay, we are intended to perform various rules, okay, in modular learning. Tayo ay magiging modulator. Ibig sabihin, if you remember, if you put up your students or children's output doon sa cartoon, okay, modulator po yun because we collect and we submit, okay, self-regulative learning modules in different barangays, if you remember those days, and they must review their child's timetable. If you are a responsible parents, you should know the schedule of your children's school. Ha? Kaya tayo ay nagsisilbing bondi clock. Ito po ang ating papel na ginagampanan ngayong post-COVID-19 and even not post-COVID-19. Ha? We are also what we call home innovators. Bakit home innovators? Because the children will be provided with productive learning environment to help them focus on learning. So it should be, our students inside the classroom should be well lighted. Mayroon pong mga ilaw dapat. Well ventilated. Dapat may mga electric fan. Whereas kung meron kayong aircon, okay ra. With little or no distraction. So the use of modules at present time facilitates self-directed learning. So self-directed learning for private schools, meron din silang self-directed learning. For us, we also use this one. Okay, so again, a theory is only a theory. We need to prove to the people, we need to prove to them how effective is the theory by testing it. Kaya nga meron tayong hypothesis testing. All right, so motivation in a sense that it is part of basic learning. It is a process in which learners' attention can be catched. It arouses and directed towards the definite goals. Kaya mayroong SRL, SRL, self-regulated learning, and stimulus and response. Okay, so the problem is, did we apply the art of motivation? Or in your lesson plan, do you have a motivation or pagganyak? That is an example of SRL, one of the example of self-regulated learning strategies. Yes, thank you, Ma'am Amelita. Okay, so wag pong kalimutan, kahit na nagbabalik aral or malawakang paglalagom, dahil sa amin sa Cebu, ang malawakang paglalagom ay nilagom na gyud na siya. Okay, those who can relate. So in motivating our classes, yes po, sir, we must take into account, so therefore, the dynamic on the nature of the learners and their past experiences, their total environment, their various needs and wants, as well as individual differences. These are the things that we need to consider. Okay, that's why there's no 100% learning in our lesson. The aura will change. So tayo po ay facilitating teacher. Yeah? You should be there inside the classroom. You should be there with our clients. The primary stakeholders of our students are, in school, are our students. Without them, we are nothing. Again, without our students, we are nothing. And without us teachers, walay principal. Because principals simply come and go, but the teachers will remain as long as you are happy with what you're doing. And I know that you're happy because you are extending your professional development, and this is in magister service you are doing. Salute po ako sa inyo. Okay, so you facilitate. You know what are the resources, okay? And you monitor also the progress and encourage our students to solve the problem. So there are many tools to utilize in facilitating learning. Okay, based on your answers kanina, yung tanong ni Sir Paulo, you'll use cooperative learning. You also use one-on-one discussions. Okay, you use what is kanang Socratic method. Do you know Socratic method? It's a Q and A, question and answer. Of course, role play, the development of the different scenarios. Okay, play games. Pero ang play games ngayon, mas maganda po yung gamification, mga laro na may ICT integration. How effective is that? If you do not know, then you ask those who are millennials, those who are very hooked in research and in ICT. So we define all of this: cognition, metacognition, cognitive learning theory, because the modern world cognition has its etymology, or kung saan nagmula ang salitang cognition. Okay? And if you try to analyze, no two students are alike. Again, no two students are alike. And the way every person, okay, learns will vary. It varies. Nagbabago po lahat. So the current and aspiring teachers need to be educated because there are many solidified learning theories that teachers can learn from. So for example, self-observation, self-judgment, and self-reactions. Ito po yung mga pinaka-importante sa katangian ng self-regulated learning. Observe, you judge, and you react. Okay, so let me continue. If you look at the picture, let's analyze this picture. I want you to look at the picture and the interaction between SRL of learning and technology because BL na po tayo ngayon. It creates composition which is loaded with symbols and iconography. And you will choose one picture and then write your answer in our chat box. Just choose only one picture and how does it signifies? Ano po ang meaning nito sa kasalukuyang pedagogy or the art and science of teaching? Okay, so time starts now. Choose only one and what's the meaning? So if you can see there, my laptop, my stop, my Bondi clock, my Roman, okay, my books. Choose only one and then write your answer in our chat box. Go. Now, na. Okay. I like to see, okay. Stop means traffic lights, time management. What else? I'd like to see your answer. Okay. What else? Time is gold. That is why. All right. What else? Ano pang nakikita ninyo? Picture analysis po. Analyze the picture. We always do this. Thank you, Ma'am Daphne. Time is gold. Detour. So what are detour means? Ano po yung books? Ano pong symbol ng books? Okay, in one phrase, in one sentence, what does it mean? Okay, so let's move further now. All right. So if you have chosen, thank you, work management. So if you are choosing traffic signs, ibig sabihin, there's what we call students orientation or rules, regulations, and guidance. And we use this during our first week or first day meeting with our students. If you are familiar with SOP, are you familiar with SOP? Kung ikaw ay teacher, dapat alam mo kung anong ibig sabihin ng SOP. I'd like to see your answer in our chat box. SOP stands for Standard Operating. Ano yung P? Ano yung P sa SOP? If you are a teacher, especially the advisors, or even if you're very good procedures from Ma'am Julio, okay, from Ma'am Annalyn, okay, thank you very much for your answers. Okay, thank you from Ma'am Eileen, Ma'am Agbo, procedure. So kayo po talaga ay teacher. SOP. Then if you choose arrows, it indicates direction and speed limits, which allude to paces and allocation of time. Remember that there is always an instruction when you teach your students because other students cannot easily get, ano po ba, paano po sasagutin ito? So the arrow indicates. Stop signs is a saturation point for a path of study. Okay, what else? If you choose books and laptops, these are resources of study and research tools. Okay, in research, books are the most credible. Okay, unlike links or online journals, they are secondary. But since it can expedite your research if you use online. So most of the references now are online, but be sure there is a DOI or direct object identifier or the link, simply the link. If you choose the gauges and a control knob, okay, that's the trinity of Zimmerman. Do not forget because Zimmerman is the one who followed by the one who made the or proponent of SRL process, the forethought, the performance phase, and the self-reflection phase. So that is common if you ask your students to write a reflection paper or reaction paper. And if you choose cake, who else here choose cake? Meron bang cake? So it symbolizes rewards and the students achieves when they delay gratification to master their goals for better grades. So if you say very good, there are many ways in saying very good. Okay, so para sa inyo, paano po mag-say ng very good? Aside from that, you can say brilliant, well done. There are many ways. Intelligent, something like that. There are many ways in making very good. So brilliant, something like that. Huh? They always, in other words, always praise our students. Okay, because that is the pride. Remember, the pride of our students must be touched. That is one way when they go home, they will tell stories to their parents. Okay, ganun yun. Tell stories. In Cebuano Garbo. Okay, pride. All right, so let's move now to the next slide. What is self-regulation? Okay, what is self-regulation in education? According to Zimmerman, okay, directive process po ito. The learners transform their mental abilities into task-related skills. So there is what we call differentiated activities. If you look at the picture, deep breaths, build something, okay? Yung mga icebreaker po natin, ha? Motivation. Those are examples of making the mental skills. Tayo pong mga teachers, if you're already 30 years old above, ako po ay 44, guwang na jud ko, no? Matanda na. Okay? Our health will boast if we exercise 40 minutes a day. I walk with Mary for Jesus. And that's how makes me feel happy with what I am doing. So if I am healthy as a teacher, I am also healthy or very active in teaching practical research, DISS, because I'm teaching now senior high school. But I started teaching 2001 and now it's 2023. 2 decades of teaching na po. 12 years in 8 years in private school and 12 years in the public school. We know already the trend. That's why the procedure, our learners, okay, according to management and organization, the thoughts should be converted into skills and used for learning. So if your students cannot really catch up with what you are expected for them or ILO, intended learning outcomes, you need to provide intervention or removal. Magpa-removal na yun ka. Ganun ang mga teacher. Aside from that, there are many ways. So one way is applying SRL. Okay, so at present time, we may assume that the data coming from our MLESF, if you are familiar with LIS natin, before we enroll our students in LIS, especially we need to know the influence of the students' intellectual conditions, their background, their parents' educational level. If you remember, we need to get that because that the demographic profile of the respondents, if you are familiar with the research process, may influence the performance or the achievements of our students. That's why we will not judge right away that the students failed because he is Joe Gates or he or she is not intelligent or academically challenged. So now let's look at the next slide, strategic management. SRL, according to Kai, this is a related study, there are 4 students that represent successful and unsuccessful self-regulation. Ito po yung kanyang involvement, complex metacognitive and social processes. Mayroong intent, agency, if you look at, mayroong peers, parents, okay, personal history. These are what we call the processes of the strategic management used by the teachers. And so the learners will just simply engage, thinking, proactive. Ganun po ang theory. Ganun po ang theory. But if you analyze who among the given example here is that what makes it credible, sino sa mga mag-aaral ang mas mataas yung kanyang control sa sarili. For example, Thomas who keeps up with assignments, Linda whose attention wanders, si Maria naman who doubts her ability, and Roberto who plans ahead. So among the 4 students, okay, can you say their name having strong SRL? Sino sa kanila? I want to see your answer in our chat box because this is participative. Number 4, Roberto who plans ahead. What else? I'd like to see some of your answers. You can just write Write the number or their name. Si Thomas ba, who keeps up with assignments? Si Linda, whose attention wanders? And Maria, who doubts her ability? Okay, so these students represents how we regulate the different dimensions of their learning. Observable ba ang kanilang behavior? Thank you for your answer, Sir Roberto, Ma'am Maricel. Okay, who among them? So the motivation and the cognition that we apply, and then we observe. And when we observe, of course, you have to jot it down in your anecdotal records. Of course, the answer are two. The answers are two. We have Thomas and Roberto. So congratulations those who choose numbers 1 and 4. So what will we do? What will we do with Linda and Maria na laging wala sa atensyon? Then si Marian palaging nagdududa. So mababa ang kanyang self-concept. Okay? Mababa ang kanyang reliability. Okay? Self-reliance. Ganun. Our students possess that type of behavior. Okay? So that is an example of the study. And if we continue, let me share to you another study from the country of China. This was in 2020 from Kai. She used the effectiveness of student self-regulated learning during COVID-19 pandemic. And if you look at the results, it's under a special period, yeah? And it is effective. Then compared with other self-regulated teachers leave, mayroong mga pagbabago. Okay, if you look at, there's a comparison of the two. So, epektibo ba ang SRL? Based on the findings, if it is effective, the teachers should guide our students to carry out SRL according to the characteristics of the discipline. So, if you're teaching Araling Panlipunan, do not forget the Philippines. Kung kayo ay nagtuturo ng world history, do not forget the Philippines. Okay, because that is contextualization. And of course, other disciplines, okay, always touch the lives of our students because that is one way of regulating them. They can relate, so relatable ba? Teachers should choose SRL, okay, or IMs, instructional materials and methods that is suitable for our students according to their academic conditions. Again, wants and needs of our students are very important. That is how we really understand. Because if you threat our students and you are the brightest inside the classroom, then you are not a teacher. Again, you are inside the classroom in order to help our students helping themselves on how to learn the lesson. Kaya nga mayroon tayong different strategies in teaching and we integrate that one. Okay, ang problema lang sa integrate, you need a time frame. Dapat in toto. Okay, Germanic time po yun. All right, next. This is a related study from Indonesia, our neighboring country. Based on the results, and not yet the results, look at the title. They promoted effective learning in the new normal. Okay, and acquiring SRL and growth mindset. So the growth mindset is another variable that is connected with the SRL. So when you do a research, always look for an angle that could be something be developed and share that one during your in-service training or learning action cell. That was 2020 and now it's 2023. So you need to decide, okay, what you've learned here must be applied based on the results of Wajestop 2T. 96.3% of students had a good self-regulation. Napakalaki po. 51 were in a growth mindset. So where are the other percentages? Okay, so hidden because these are the major results. And at the end of the semester, learning results also confirmed that 81.48% of student score was above the passing grade. So this study indicates that the promotion of effective learning is there. It is prevalent. And the acquisition of SRL and the growth mindset are also essential. So this is aligned with the previous study that I showed to you, katong yung sinabi ko yung kay Kai. They are closely related. And you will explain that one, you paraphrase that one, that is part now of your rationale in your research or thesis, or in the review of related literature, that is of great help. Again, you need to explain why is it related in your study, because no discussion of the related study is non-scientific. Again, it's non-scientific. All right, did you get me? If you are still with me, let's move now to the next one. This is from the Netherlands. Ito po yung Holland nung unang panahon. And this is how the university challenge all the faculty to have an online learning during COVID-19 and pandemic, because now meron pa ring online. I'm also teaching college students and postgraduate, Master of Arts in Education and Social Studies. We divide online and we have also face-to-face as of now in Cebu Normal University. In DepEd, some of our students or most of them have problems in this, but they are very hooked or addicted with their cell phones. So they can still relate with you through the messenger or Facebook, but not all. Okay, so what is available resource in your school must be utilized. And the results of viewer and others, students reported being less able to regulate their attention. Negative. Effort and time and less motivated compared to the situation. Okay, the situation and the crisis. So investing more time and effort in their self-study is one of the results. There is an investment of time. So time is an investment. All right. So based on the findings, what can we say with this? According to the psychological functioning, self-efficacy, what can we say with this? Ano po ang mangyayari? So there is what we call a socialization to conquer the feelings of isolation. Maybe the students are afraid or shy during the facilitating of online collaboration, something like that. If you experience when you ask questions and the students will just disappear, biglang mawawala dahil naghihina po ang signal. Do you experience that one? That when you ask question, wag tang nagkalit or biglang naglaho na parang bula. Answer me with yes or no if you experience that one. That is why we cannot say 100% of yes, sir. See, Ma'am Jovelyn, thank you po. Yes po. Ito po ang dahilan kung bakit nagbabago po ang ating kalakaran sa pagtuturo. And during our faculty time, nagiging marites po tayo. Diba? Na ganito ang nangyari during online, ganyan. Okay? And that is happened in Netherlands. So what must the tawag sa mga tao sa Netherlands? Kung ang mga sa China ay Chinese, ang Indonesia ay Indonesians, in the Netherlands, ano pong tawag sa mga tao doon? Okay? Can you relate? Dutch. Very good, ma'am. Annalyn. Okay, so napakalayo po. Akala ko Netherlandians. Anyway, if our students would answer like that, I accept that one. Thank you, Ma'am Annalyn. Baka si Ma'am Beck Annalyn ay isang araling panlipunan teachers or she is vigilant. Okay? So, why do we need to use self-regulation? According to Zimmerman, it is a way to actively engage otherwise passive students in their academic instruction. So if the students are feeling good, they are healthy, they would really participate. Ganun po. So perceiving, remembering, ito po yung tinatawag nating covert behavior. Reasoning, thinking, creating, and dreaming, even dreaming, among many more. It's part of the covert. Okay, intangible po ito sa araling panlipunan. The main reason is that unobservable actions are not considered as behaviors because these behaviors are not deducible to audiences. You need to show something to your students. You're your assigned teacher pala, ma'am. Okay. So again, where was I? Okay, this behavior should be showed. Deducible po ito. Okay, kaya nga ang SRL can be applied to different subjects, all strategies, and all you have to do is, of course, to read, refresh, all right? Because the main reason here is that our students are our audience. A, B, C, D po tayo sa lesson plan. A, for actor, who are our students in our LP. B, for the behavior, what are the behavioral objectives to be written in our LP. C for condition, ilang bahagdan or percentage ang inaasahang mangyayari sa pagtuturo. And D for the duration. So, ang duration po natin, 4 times a week. Okay, ganun po. Pero sa ESP, edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, 1 meeting lang siguro. So, what type of learning? And this is something controversial or questionable. Do you have classes or subjects having NTY or no teacher yet? Because some in our school, there are subjects also NTY, no teacher yet. So what type of quality education? Yes or no? Because honestly, there are still NTY, no teacher yet. So what will we do? Okay. So while you are still active in your assignment, in your position, please function your role as a teacher because God is watching us from a distance. Yan po ay nasa kanta. So self-regulated learning is a cyclical process. It's a cyclical process. We use the strategies to monitor the performance of our students. Okay. And wherein that student plans for a task, monitors and then reflects on the outcome, and the cycle then repeats as the student uses the reflection to adjust and prepare for the next task. So if you look at the keywords self-observation, it reflects the actions taken by our students and the effectiveness of the results. So for example, when I studied in a quiet location in the library, I completed the reading more quickly than when I read at home. Do you feel also that one? That is an example of self-observation. And the question is your library functional? Mao yun na yung problema. Na library, wa man say mamasa. There's library but no one will read. So that's the function of the librarian. Self-observation po yan because we need to let our students read because after reading, we let them, one of the activities is that we let them write. And then after writing, mag-oral recitation ka. Those are basic communication skills we use as a teacher. And because things don't always go smoothly, no matter how you planned your LP, you planned during your class hours, some students also plan for what to do when obstacles arise. So it needs a technical assistance. So for example, if I get stuck on the math in this assignment and during the checking of assignment in mathematics, kailangan po ng help session, weekly help session. That is one way of having an intervention. Okay, or within the classroom, there must be a what we call board work. And so you will ask your students, okay, who come to the board and solve the problem. That's board work. Okay, the teachers should be there. Again, the teacher should be there because there is no or there is lesser SRL, self-regulated learning, kung walang mag-facilitate sa classroom. So, prompt students to stick with the strategies, even though it may be tempting to revert to known, meaning to say the strategy is not effective. So if it is not effective, look for other strategies. That's why you reteach. And familiar approaches may feel inefficient at first, but learning the method can be an important thing. Okay, for the material. Kaya nga mayroon tayong mga kagamitang pampagtuturo sa paglinang ng curriculum. And have the students monitor their progress on the intermediate goals and the strategies we are using and they are also using. And at the same time, you can also monitor their progress and offer a feedback. So if you let your students role play or make a skit, isa dula ang mga pangyayari, what questions would you like to ask after their demonstration, after their presentation? And you have already your criteria. Mayroon ka ng pamantayan sa paggrado sa kanila. Maybe one of the criteria is creativity. Then readiness. So after a thorough presentation, what would the teacher do? What question will you ask to your students? May I see just one answer among my participants right now? What type of question will you ask after a thorough presentation? Let's say role play or dramatization. May I see at least one or two teachers here in our Zoom? What will you ask after role play? I'd like to see before I continue. What type of question will you ask? I haven't seen yet some of not answer yet. Okay, hello, are you still with me? Huh? Open-ended questions. Thank you very much. Okay, and when you ask that question, also ask their feelings. Okay, so what are your feelings? Okay, anong naramdaman mo? Consider the hot questions. Thank you very much. Did you enjoy our activity? Very good. Yung did you enjoy the activity? Self-reflection. That is how we follow up. We follow up that one because your grading tapos ka nang mag-score sa kanila is not enough. Some students would like to say something with their feelings. Remember that they are not always in front of their classmates. The feeling of nervous, alam niyo yun? Ha? Kinakabahan po yung mga estudyante. So ikaw yung teacher na you're already accustomed to face. Kaya nga merong mga hots, okay, lots to hots, reflection also. Very good, Ma'am Annalyn Herbolingo, okay, and Sir John Mark Gregorio. All right, and we need to apply what we have learned. So the self-regulated learning we plan. It's in our lesson plan, right? And we set goals and lay out strategies. Dahil ito po ay cycle. We use strategies and monitor the performance of our students. So do not go yet. Always monitor. That's why even in our discussion, we will ask our students, okay, so which part of the activity is very difficult to do? That is how we strategize. That is how we monitor the performance of our students. Otherwise, low scores yung na-obtain nila. And of course, the reflection of their performance is optional, but you can also use that one, okay? Because there are students who cannot really portray, they cannot do that into action, but they are good in writing. And that is how one of the criteria to be considered, right? The reflection performance. Okay, so the cycle continues, and the introduction of this model is an excellent bird's eye view for those teachers here. Again, bird's eye view SRL concept. You can use this one as your theory when you are now in your research journey, especially those are now in thesis, those are now in your dissertation, okay, at different designs. All right, and this one is one of the application that I used. I collaborate with my colleagues, my friends in the service. Sila po ay mga Filipino teacher. At ang title po ng aming action research ay ang bagong kalakaran ng sining ng komunikasyon tungo sa mapanimdim na journal na mga mag-aaral sa senior high school. So kami pong tatlo ay mga MT, but first time po in Don Sergio Osmeña na wala pong nag-research, action research in Filipino. So kami po ang pinakauna, and the theory of self-regulated is being applied, okay, to verify the validity of a presented hypothesis about the theoretical structure of the theory in empirical reality. So ito na po ang empirical reality. From the theory that I've learned from Magister Service since 2020 or 2021, I applied this one in my own local setting. A theory should be corrected or completely rejected if it does not receive support from the empirical data. What does it mean? We hypothesize po that there is no significant, for example, there is no significant relationship between the student's performance and their strand, because we are teaching senior high school GAS, TBL, and STEM. So if there's no significant relationship, meaning to say, kaunti lamang siguro ang mga sample namin. Okay, that is for the TVL dahil kaunti. Pero sa gas, there is a significant relationship. Okay? And the expected output of our study is, ito po yung panukala, proposal pa lang. Pero it's what we already presented this one in our school level, and even at international level, we presented this one free of cost because we are looking into different research organization. That's how we widen our latitude, my latitude as a research coordinator in our district. Okay, I always let my co-faculty or co-teachers be calm and then embrace the culture of research because marami po ang takot sa action research. Huh? So to continue, this is an example of how we present this one in Istanbul, Turkey, online po. Dahil sa yun po ay Tagalog, we translate it in English so that it would be acceptable as a standard form. That was just this year, January 21 to 2023. In Turkey, the new trends in communication are through the reflective journals of senior high school students. And, okay, sa awa ng Diyos, na-publish na po ito. Okay, and so my teachers are very happy. Okay, so what is behind our study? What theory that we anchored is that of Zimmerman. Okay, so the self-regulated learning theory. Okay, so from theory into practice. So we bridge the gap. How will we bridge the gap is to open up and accept our challenge, okay, as a teacher researcher. All right, so to continue, we are now in this slide. There are models, self-regulative learning models. And remember, models are theories. They are crafted, okay, from Zimmerman, then to Paul Pintrich, then from Bocart's model to Wayne and Hadwin model, up to Hodgkin, Droppin, Millen model rather. Okay, if you look at all of these models are the product of continuous research. Okay, so if you want to make your own model, is it possible? Yes, the answer is possible. Continue studying. If you're done with your master's degree, continue with your doctoral degree, EDD or PhD, and you will generate new knowledge. It's a comprehensive work, pero it pays off when you will be graduating. So for me, I always use what I've learned since 2019. I finished my PhD major in research and evaluation. And now we have 4 collaborative projects because I'm done already with myself. What will happen to Dr. Moral if I just simply concentrating with my own learning? I need to embrace and touch the teacher's, okay, awareness that teaching and learning and researching are combination of what we call educator. So you're not just an ordinary teacher. You're not just an instructor or a professor. You are an educator. So what will happen to the model? We need to use this one. And so from this model, we have to revisit this and we will give emphasis for every finding of the result. So we'll start from Zimmerman. Okay, so if you look at the figure, okay, it's a triadic analysis. It represents the interaction of the 3 forms of SRL behavior: the environment, okay, the behavior itself, and the person level. So this is what Albert Bandura, if you remember him, okay, Albert Bandura, observation, imitation, and modeling. These are the components that make up individual personality, the traits of the person, the behavior, and the environment. That's why you get to know your students who are no longer there, or NLPA. If you can relate with me, ano po yung NLPA? NLPA ba? No longer participating in your activities or school activities. So what's the use of your being a teacher or plain teacher kahit na ikaw ay teacher 1 or teacher 3? You need to revisit what is the triadic analysis of SRL according to Zimmerman. Okay. Next, if you look at figure 2, at the individual level, this is the interrelation of metacognitive and motivational processes. If you observe, Zimmerman and meron na siyang kasama si Campillo. Ibig sabihin, patuloy ang kanilang pananaliksik. Okay? So, the metacognitive awareness and motivation joined together, okay, they are closely related because the association may represent a potential target for the educational process. So again, we process po, we always process. And for example, sa dean, okay, sa higher education and faculty, meron ding mga principals, mayroong mga teachers, whatever learning institutions you belong, ako, nag-a-adjust po ako. If I go to Cebu Normal University, I have to adjust like a professor. And even DepEd, I have to adjust like a basic education teacher because the adoption of strategies focus on promoting self-regulated learning. For college, they are more on lecture. They know already what will happen to them. But in basic education, you are the second parents and you will be yung mga maraming mga estudyante na mga pasaway, so you will act like a teacher. So what will happen to your LP? Okay, so that might be an example of how will we regulate our students, okay, by revisiting Zimmerman and Campillo. That is how the structure and sub-processes of self-regulation mayroong forethought, performance, or volitional control. Meaning to say, may mga pagkakataon na nagiging bright yung ating mga students is because they are well motivated. Always praise them. And of course, there is what we call self-reflection. Okay, that is at the individual level and the interrelation of this. Okay, as research continues from different years, okay, Zimmerman and Moylan continued, and it is a new metacognitive and volitional strategies in the performance phase. So there is what we call an evolution of the study. Again, this is only a theory, a model or a theory. You need to apply this one, okay, especially during experimental method. Because if you teach and give a test, that is still an experimental, pero weak po ang kanyang characteristic. Whereas, mayroong pre-test, then you teach, and then post-test. Or you compare the SRL model to the traditional way of teaching. So, mayroon pong effectiveness kung sino sa dalawang teaching approach ang mas nakalalamang based on the scores of our students. So, if you look at this figure, the forethought phase, yung performance phase, and self-reflection phase, ito po yung mga characteristics. Okay? Self-reactions which positively or negatively influence how our students approach the task in later performances. Okay? So, yung mga students na hindi nakaka-catch up, okay, you need to remind them. That's our role as a teacher. Right? Let's move to the next figure. This is from Zimmerman also in 2000. If you look at the model, there are vicarious learning. Vicarious learning, these are the ways of learning that allows our students to learn from their experience. Okay? And the sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, it is an example of giving rise to something, okay? In other words, nasusuri ang pagiging inductive teacher mo. Okay? According to Chinese proverb, if I tell you, you might forget. But if I show you, you might remember or you will remember. But if we let our students involve or engage, there is higher learning with the guidance of the teachers because you are controlling them and at the same time, they are also controlling or regulating themselves. All right. So the multi-level model, if we look at that one, the multi-level model, this is what we call an empirical evidence in 2000 po. So 2023 minus 2000, ilang dekada na. Ha? So we need to continue the study. So for example, the use of athletic skills along with more academic skills. Yung mga students na mahilig sa sports, yung MAPE or PE, they are students like that. So different effect of outcome might happen. Okay? So if you use strategies, may pagkakataon na ang kanilang engagement and scores will increase. So the use of different strategies for linguistics subjects, Filipino, English, or even Araling Panlipunan, if you let your students write a diary, okay, and the diary should be monitored, because that is an example of time series analysis. What are the learnings of the students from the first part or the first phase up to the last phase? Of course, kay diary lagi, dahil ito po ay diary, observe ethical considerations that all of their diaries must not be divulged. Okay? So, confidential po. Ganun. Okay? In such a way that it is related to your subject, academic po. Let me continue. Okay? Let's move now to part 2, that Bokerts. Okay? That's the different goal roadmaps. If you look at the figure, top, down, and then down and up. And that's how the rule of emotions takes place. Okay, so the first model of this Bokert's model says that there is what we call gaining more insights into domain-specific components of SRL. So ibig sabihin, yung mga insights ng SRL ay likas po, natural lang po sa atin yon and for our students. But if you are well trained and if you construct new measurements, okay, like what I've said, if you will go into research, action research po sa ating mga teacher, action research, we will use the verb or non-verb. Okay, we design intervention programs. So that's why if you observe yung DepEd, marami po mga papel ang ipinasasubmit, and we just simply submit and submit. But the question, did you learn from your submission? That's why you have to tirador. You have to use one stone in hitting two birds, because the model remains a model if this is not applied. All right. So design intervention programs and self-regulated learning is an example of intervention. All right. So in this model, the emotions are very essential because the students experience, okay, whether negative or positive, they could still be part of the activation of the figure. If you look at the figure, tawag mayo, well-being, use bottom up, okay? And if there are instances when the students cannot really catch up, kapag pinapagalitan mo ang iyong mga estudyante, may mga pangyayaring ganun, magbabago po ang kanilang reaction. That's why be careful, because students like us are emotions. And remember, we teachers, we were also like them. Okay? So wag kalimutan na tayo po ay minsan din naging estudyante. Right? So this is how the model would remind us that we are dealing with human beings. Okay, look at the second model of Bokert's. This is an example of empirical evidence. Parallel processing modes. We have mastery of learning mode and coping or well-being mode. So online motivation questionnaire, if you are experienced using the Google Forms, something like that, sa ating Google Classroom, okay? These are examples of empirical evidence, okay? And you will use that one when you do CI or creative investigation, okay? And we have also other programs in the Department of Education. Meron po tayong GOD, no? Meron tayong Gender and Development. So it could also be used there. Okay, we are processing this one in such a way that there is no stereotyping, there is no gender bias, okay, and more of the variance in learning intention than domain measures. So that's why the different abilities, the different mastery of performance goals, and the interest in the domain we report this one because we have levels of mastery. If you have your test question, you have your TOS, table of specification. After the TOS, you have your item analysis. And the item analysis, okay, shows there which item should be rejected, which item of the test may be retained, and which item will be revised. So tatlong R po yun sa item analysis. And if you're doing that one and apply that, well, very good. And then continue making studies, just manage your time. So the online motivation questionnaire from the online, kapag nag-online po, okay, is what we call a confidence of that scale, because some structural equation models, yung mga highest research na po ngayon, students had invested effort after doing their mathematics homework. Dahil medyo yung dyscalculia, students were afraid of numbers, which produce positive emotions during the task if you are guiding them. Okay? So, mas maganda po yung mga students na positive po sila kahit na medyo nahihirapan sila sa kalisod. Nahihirapan sa, ngayon, nahihirapan sa pag-intindi ng inyong mga instructions. So, you will use the neutral network methodology dahil ito po ay napatunayan na according to research. Kaya nga ito ay adaptable learning or flexible learning. Okay. So, the same with this. Exposures of this purpose of SRL. Ito po ay empirical din. Empirical po. Okay. Then we'll continue with the commitment. Using activities rewrote attention from the well-being or pathway to the mastery to the pathways. Kaya nga mayroong appraisal, mayroong assessment. Okay. Basta the purposes of SRL here is that you expand the knowledge, you prevent to threat the self and lose of resources. May mga ganun. Okay? Kahit na walang resources, you can still teach. Those who are seasoned teachers can do that. Okay? And rewrote attention from the well-being pathway to the mastery pathway. So look at the keyword commitment. Protecting one's commitment by using activities. If there are no activities and you will do all the discussions from morning, from let's say from 7:30 to 12 without break, what will happen to you, okay, in the afternoon? So that's why you have also to regulate, consider your health. Okay, let me continue. Okay, next is part 3, that is when and had when exploring SRL from metacognitive perspective. Okay, so ito po yung mga salient points. Strongly influenced by the information processing theory, exploring the cognitive and metacognitive aspects of SRL, and update the version which two mentioned figures kanina were fused into one along with reflection about the cognitive, okay, aspects that explains about the SRL. So for example, if you consider that the profile of your students may influence their knowledge, may influence their MI or multiple intelligence, then you should do that one. Apply that one. In other words, lahat po ng nabanggit ko dito as of now ay puros mga research. Okay? So, if they are making research, so you are. You're also asked to do research. Okay? COPES stands for conditions, operations, products, evaluations, and standards. So studying is empowered by this. 4, we have task definition, goal setting and planning, enacting study tactics and strategies, and metacognitively adapting studying. Okay, these are what we call empirical evidences. So, marami na po kayong nabasa. For example, marami na pong online journals. You may conclude, find time to reflect, point out what challenges did you encounter, okay, from this school year, because your experience as a teacher, and you compare your teaching strategy, compare the performance of your students from the previous grading periods. Those are what we call the situational analysis, which prompted you to conduct with a study in a form of action research. So that's how the local scenario, you will discuss that in details in your research paper. Okay? Kahit na proposal pa lang po. So you incorporate the different regulation of motivation as a reference to build the connection. We always establish connection, and how SRL skills develop over the lifespan of your teaching. Ito po ay inherent na bahagi na po ng ating pamumuhay, pagtuturo hanggang sa ikaw ay magre-retire. Ang self-regulated learning ay nandyan pa rin. You don't know that what you're doing is SRL pala. Okay? So consider the students' abilities, and even those students who are part of inclusive education. May mga special students po tayo. May mga special children, but they are not studying, okay, in a specialized institution, because in DepEd we cater, we have inclusive education, and that's one of the problems if there are no specialized teachers who are majoring in SPED. Am I right? Okay, may mga students po tayo, mga disabilities, may mga disabled po, ganun. It cannot be avoided. Okay, so it might impact the SRL. So you have to reflect, reflect, and then look for somebody in our school that could help us on how to really apply SRL, okay, not only as an ordinary teacher, but also when you are very, very, very ready in making an action research, so that we can bridge the theory or concept into application. So the education legacy of Zimmerman, of Bolt Pintrich, is that formulating a conceptual framework for studying SRL phases and areas of self-regulation is important. So we formulate conceptual framework. Concepts are what we call ideas, and they are working. Kaya nga tinatawag na framework, because every frame or every box in your framework, okay, are variables or constructs, and you need to understand what are the inputs there, meaning to say, what are the questions in your statement of the problems that you are integrating or doing or applying, and then how will you process all those variables. So for every statement of the problem, get ready with your data collection or data gathering, and how will you treat, maging quantitative man or qualitative. And then, what is the expected output? Yun po ang O. So, IPO po tayo. Input, process, and then output. Usually, yung output natin is to make an action plan or make a sustainability action plan. That's why if you look at letter B, emphasize the rule, lahat po ay may motivation. But you need to conduct research according to letter C. And then D, explore the development of this. And E, you have to investigate the complexities. To investigate is to research. And then helping to develop the MSLQ. So ito po ang ating trend. Ito po ang ating kalakaran from formulation of framework up to helping to develop this model. Because if you are familiar with the reliability of your questionnaire, once you have already your statement of the problem, the reliability of your questionnaire may be or can be seen in the Cronbach-Alpha reliability. So if you look at the Cronbach-Alpha, ito po yung gaano ka-epektibo ang questionnaire nyo po sa research. So this is how we can see the internal consistency of your creative investigation. So for example, 0.84 there is good, and the SRL is 0.83, which is also good. So it shows there that sa lahat ng mga dimensions or construct, Okay, self-efficacy, intrinsic value. Those are types of motivation. Ang pinakamataas po ay ang motivation and SRL, which is 0.84 according to the result. All right, so you need to ask somebody, okay, dapat ang inyong paaralan, yung school po ninyo may research coordinator. The question is, do you have a research coordinator? And of course, the principals, the school heads must also be aware that he or she is an instructional leader in your school. Okay, maybe or she is not good in a particular subject, but when it comes to organization, leadership, comes to instruction, he or she could transform the teachers into a very functional, because the more the principal is surrounded by effective and efficient teachers, there is what we call leadership and empowerment of your school. Kaya nagiging quality po ang inyong paaralan. Let's move to part 4. This is of Pintrich, emphasizing the role of motivation in SRL. Okay, so it starts with forethought, planning, and activations, then monitoring, then control, then reaction, and reflection. So what will happen to us? These are what we call the conceptualizations of these phases, the judgments of learning and feelings of knowing. Meron pa rin pong motivation, right? So, examples, covert behavior. Then we have also thinking, dreaming, yun po ang yung mga covert behavior. Okay, and then empirical data, we use the rule of methods and SRL. We use the relationship between SRL, the motivation, and learning outcomes. Pabalik-balik po ang motivation, because if there is no motivation, then the students will wander and will go their dimension, their attention will go to other direction. So this, what we emphasize in self-regulated learning, that it might influence and must have a significant or high impact of your study in the long run or someday, because we are planning attending in seminar training here. What's the most important aside from accepting rules, accepting managing your time, is that find time to be a demonstration teacher during your in-service training inset, because that is one point. Okay, always attend a training. This one is good because you're attending in school. Also, you need to be part of the teaching force who are expected to demonstrate. All right. Okay, so forethought. Okay, let me continue. And then on this part, this is the missing piece between metacognition and SRL. So if you look at the person level, macro level, may mga cognition, motivation, pabalik-balik po yung mga concepts, metacognition, and then task by person and level, then micro level, pabalik-balik po. If we just simply summarize this one, task by person level, and if you look at the arrows, they are interacting with each other. Okay, dahil ito po ay model, what's the implication of this for us? So it should simply show there that our students perform during task execution. And the phase, if you look at the phase, with the highest cognitive load, where all resources are leading to the activity. All right, so it is better for teaching it as a learning for us, that if we provide instructional materials to our students and ready to use, that could facilitate your teaching, rather than letting your students spend more money and buy something so that they can prepare for themselves. Remember that our students are marginalized. Okay, so as teachers, if you can use extra mile to spend for your students, dahil meron naman tayong chalk allowance, okay, or any extra income, I mean extra money, you may do that and then preserve for the next school year. That's the one of the greatest glory of being a competent teacher. Okay, not only in the new normal, but in the old normal. Okay, and part 6 is of Hadwin in the context of collaborative learning. So, marami pong nag-aaral tungkol sa cooperative learning. Okay, and this is part of self-regulated learning. Look at the modes. Collaborative settings, SRL. Co-regulation, ibig sabihin, patas, fair po, regardless of gender, regardless of IQ, and shared regulation. So we have to consider that one because that is part of SRL, shared regulation, conditions, operations, products, okay, everything po. You may combine everything. All of these models specify, especially that of Paul Pentrich. All right. So the conceptualized, what we say, the conceptualized SSRL, okay, is unfolding in 4 loosely sequenced and recursively linked feedback loops. So pabalik-balik po ang process. So if you look at the first loop, negotiate and construct shared task perceptions based on internal and external task conditions. Okay, so in the making of construct, we connect past lessons to the current lesson. That is how we use the pagbabalik aral, or basically as a teacher we use the review method. The second loop, look at the second loop, shared goals for the task and make plans about how to approach the task together. So if there are activities in every lesson, that is how basically in pedagogy, that is what we call the activity method. The third loop, strategically coordinate their collaboration and monitor their progress. So if you monitor their progress, the groups can change their tasks, their goals, their plans, and of course, you as teacher, you optimize their collective activity. And finally, the fourth loop, you have to uh, evaluate the future performance of your students, because you have to evaluate if they are really comprehending, if they are really understanding with what you are intended to happen for them. Okay, so the empirical evidence of that is that the different levels of social regulation, because students can also learn with themselves, with their peers. That is what we call socialized recitation. In other terms, there is what we call balance, okay, or what we call co-regulation. Okay, so group them regardless of gender. Then it is also found negative, okay, metacognitive, cognitive, emotional, and it promotes learning and performance, but not all the time. Remember that this is only a model. Okay, the model according to the empirical studies might be effective, but in your case, so what if it is not effective? Yan po ang problema. Kapag hindi po effective, nagre-research ka na, then you found out that it is not significant. So what will happen? You need to recommend and suggest, because in research, there are future researchers who would repeat and duplicate your study. Okay, so let me continue. Okay, so in the world of research, if you look at the model from Bockert up to Zimmerman, and the publication from 2000, okay, up to 2005, and the total citations, okay, there is what we call the impact factor. Okay, yung kay Zimmerman, if you look at Zimmerman, okay, the total citations is 4,169, and how many average citations per year? That's 245.24. And compared to the list one, if you are still with me, if you are listening to me, the highest is 4,169. Alin po yung pinaka-list, pinaka-mababang total citations? Okay? What number? Can you give me the figure? I want to see your answers in our chat box. Dahil yun po ang importante sa research. What's the highest and what's the lowest? Very good. Thank you, Ma'am Annalyn. Ikaw po ang isa sa pinaka-attentive. 196. So you will explain why, bakit least kakaunti lamang ang pag-aaral na ito ayon sa total citations. It's because if you're a consumer of knowledge, if you're a researcher, thank you very much, Sir Erwin, Ma'am Cherry Licas, Sir Ray and Ma'am Ray and Michelle, Ma'am Leia. Okay, you are still there, very active. Thank you po for listening. Okay, now, again, I'm still talking about research because what will happen to us if you are just simply reading this one, ha? We need to put this into action someday, ha? Hindi agad-agad. That's why you need also self-reflection by yourselves. All right. So, alamin kung bakit yung kay Zimmerman 4169 ay marami po. Dahil kapag marami 4169, there are existing studies and you have to pay more when you publish. So, next to 4169 is 1037. No, 1037. Or, depende po kung saan ka happy. Sa Bisaya, kung asa ka malipayon, suportaan ta ka. Okay? So, where you are happy, we will support you and look for the model. It's not only the citation because in the world of research, citation is the highest glory. That's the highest achievement in the field of research. Not only you submit your thesis and then you graduate and everything. It's just only for units or car. No, it's not. It should be published and cited, right? So, okay, the impact factor of the journal matters. But in the Department of Education, you know what? It is not strongly mandated or mandatory. But if you want to learn more, dahil nandito ka na sa Magister Service, okay, start now having a self-reflection on what will happen to you after this webinar or next school year, 2023 to 2024. Are you willing to apply SRL in your classroom lang muna, and then if it is effective, then do it apply for BERF or Basic Education Research Fund. Okay? Because it's easier said than done. Madaling sabihin, mahirap po gawin. All right. So in general terms, we have here the phases, the preparatory, the performance, the appraisal, and we can hypothesize that the model that I am showing to you, okay, emphasize a clear distinction among the phases and the sub-processes. And in holistic, sa, ano po yun, holistic? For the whole, sa Cebuano ang tibuok, okay? Any perceptions of SRL, okay, there's always what we call a continuous process because of the related sub-processes. Marami po mga processes and sub-processes, and it's up to you what model you will use because this hypothesis would be need to explore in the future. Kaya nga in the future, not tomorrow ha. So tomorrow, Sunday, mag-research dayon ka, mag-research ka agad. No, not yet. You need a time for self-reflection because that is part of controlling yourself as a teacher before you will control also your students. All right, let's have a time check. It's still 6:45 siguro. Right, so we have preparatory, performance, and appraisal. Again, as an effective teacher, we should lead by example. Okay, lead by example in such a way that the different strategies of teaching, which is part of teaching methodology, and teaching methodology is part of teaching approach. That's the hierarchy. You can see there inside the classroom what techniques are you doing or employing and what styles are you doing. So if you can manage well your classroom, then you are using the SRL. But scientifically, prove to your co-teachers, prove to the school heads that you can do a simple action research even if it is not funded by DepEd. All right, so let's continue. This is another sharing of empirical evidence. This was in 2017, all right? And here, the teachers need to receive training in SRL theory and models to understand how they can maximize their students' learning. It's in pre-service. Okay, yun yung mga natuturo sa kindergarten. But the findings should show there that it needs pedagogical training. Ang training po ay pabalik-balik. Why pabalik-balik? Even if we already know the Albert Bandura, the SRL, all of those theories. Okay? Si John Dewey, alam na natin yan. Sino pa? Si John Locke, all of the foundations of education. But remember, we humans tends to forget. That's why if we have the tendency to forget, we have also find the tendency to remember. So as in-service teachers also, yun sa inset natin, needs to receive training on this. That's why you are here in Magister Servos, because there is a probability that you have forgotten the trainings when you are during your inset in your respective schools. Okay, and teachers should gain SRL expertise themselves as learners, as this impact their knowledge and pedagogic skills. So again, ang sining ng pagtuturo at ang skills kasanayan sa pagtuturo, we will combine that one. That is what we call pedagogy. Those who are teaching senior high schools and college, andragogy po yon. Pero sa kasalukuyan, meron na pong iba't ibang pangalan. Meron na tayong pedagogy, meaning they could understand with their peers. Then we have also cybergogy. They can learn with cyber, with computer. Okay? It's a difference, goji. Right? And to continue, that is another example of empirical studies. Tinatawag itong empirical. Why? Because it underwent an experiment. It underwent a process po. Hindi po ordinaryong pag-eksperimento lamang. Kaya nga empirical. Alright? Teachers at different level, okay, educational level, use different approaches because SRL is a very big scope of teaching approaches. Okay? But not in the expected directions. So ito naman po. So if you look at the results in higher education, the teachers tend to focus on the course content but not in the expected direction. Ganun naman po talaga sa college. Okay? You let the students do this and do that, okay, but not in the expected direction. And for secondary teachers, it offers more for those opportunities but do not formulate explicit instructions in terms of SRL. So there are strengths and weaknesses of SRL. But in your case, how effective? That in 2012, according to Moose and Ringdahl, okay, tend to focus but not in the expected. And then for the secondary level, do not formulate. Okay? Then for primary teachers, yung mga nagtuturo sa elementary, it needs to implement more SRL practices. That's the reason why you are encouraged to attend webinars, trainings, meron po tayong LAC session because we are practicing what we have learned from our college, teaching the major, something like that. Right? So we teachers can create specific strategies and techniques to apply these learning theories in our classroom. So well-rounded education ang tawag doon. Well-rounded. Okay? So well-rounded, are you a well-rounded individual? That's one of the questions. Okay? And even this one, creating environments that lead students' actions towards learning. So if you look at the results, teachers can create a classroom environment that is conducive toward learning goals. Very good. And students also activate goals not oriented to learning. So there is a positive, there's also a negative. So what is the indication of this? Yan po ang question. What's the indication? Okay. Another is a self-regulated learning, okay, approach beneficial for learning. If you look at the results, students experience a high cognitive load when performing novel tasks. So, panibagong activity po ito. Yeah, cognitive ang approach. And Zimmerman's multi-level has been proposed for self-assessment, which is crucial process for SRL. So they encourage the future researchers, those what we call in research importance of the study or the significance of the study, which can be found as the last part of the research. Because who are these future researchers? Of course, tayo po mga teachers, especially teachers 1 to 3. So, encourage and then have a self-regulated learning. All right. So, let's have a short survey. Okay, you draw a smiley face if you have experience using this one in your classroom setting, and then doubt face if you are really doubt if you did not use your SRL. That's 1 to 10. Okay, as quick as you can, I want to see your answers. Smiley face lang po or sad face, or kayo po ay galit na hindi niyo na. Wow, thank you. If you're using a role play, use smiley face. Did you create a share a journal for your students? Wow, answer po ni Ma'am Carissa, ni Ma'am Camille. Wow, smiley face. Totoo po talaga ha, na you really use journals. Did you use visual as reminders? Even in your group chat, in your in Messenger, you teach how to gauge emotions. Were there times when one of your students have a problems, nag-away ba sila, and then you settle the conflict? That's how we regulate. Thank you, Ma'am Carissa, Sir Mark Jason. Thank you, Ma'am Annalyn Herbolingo. Thank you po. Wow, napaka-wide po ng smile. Then, did you highlight or color coding the important information when you show PPT or PowerPoint in your classroom? That is how you regulate, because the attention of your students. Okay. And then number 8, using an assignment and break down large assignments. Did you also do that in number 8? Thank you, you are smiling. So ibig sabihin, kapag yung aralin, yung assignment or takdang aralin ay mahirap, of course, you have to break it down dahil hindi po kaya ng WERPA ng ating mga students. How about number 9, frequent guided practice and offer positive feedback? Did you also write feedback? Remember that yung feedback ng mga students could be used as a data in making an action research. Again, yung mga feedback po nila, if you let your students describe you as a teacher, kung kayo ba ay effective or terror, that's one of the basis of making an action research. Do not just rely on their scores. How about post, explain, and teach classroom rules and routines? Of course, especially class advisors. Okay, even not class advisors, we always use that. Thank you for the smiley faces. Wala po akong nakitang doubt face at mga angry face. Ibig sabihin, normal po ang mga participants natin and they are really doing their job. Congratulations po, kayo po ay well self-regulated learners. Okay, so thank you Ma'am Charlene, Ma'am Florisa. Okay, so let me continue. Another activity. In this training, okay, I want you to reflect on what you have accomplished and what you will do so that you can improve your SRL. Okay, and write your answers by following the instructions. So in your red, okay, in red, yung traffic sign, today my learning, just in phrase po, or one sentence, or phrase, or one word, today my learning stopped because, ano po, kapag red, meron bang na-stop? Today my learning stopped because, ano po? So I'd like to know, okay? This is how we let our students, kapag nagtuturo po kayo ng mahirap na subjects, then you will ask, today my learning stopped because ano po kaya ang nangyari? And yellow, today I considered SRL a question or a new idea or new perspective. Okay? So this is one of the activities that you will employ to your students. Ito po ay tinatawag na exit tickets. Again, exit tickets po. So the feedback tools there, okay, makita po natin. And the green one, ano po ang inyong masasabi kapag green na? Would it let go? Do you really learn something from this webinar in Magister Service? Yung aking ginagawa pala or nagawa ko na ay self-regulated learning, not knowing na ito pala ay SRL. So when students encountered a challenge, these are the things that you will use as an activity. So you can diagnose where are they facing difficulties. And when students have thought differently about something, ano po kaya ang kanilang ibang nasa sa isip. And then when students are learning well, then you let them write it on the green one. Okay, so that is an example of how you let your students do an activity, and be sure that the activity that you are employing to your students are meaningful for them, not an activity that you are nagging, palagi mong pinapagalitan, or ikaw po ay terror talaga. Meron bang terror teacher dito? Okay? Sometimes we do act, but we need to discipline our students with love. That's how we do our best as a teacher. For me, I started teaching in 2001. So it's already 2 decades of teaching. And I found out that I have to find happiness with what I am doing. That my students understand practical research 1, practical research 2, and practical research 3 encourages investigation and immersion. Even if I know that 100% of them are afraid of numbers, some are afraid of constructing sentences in qualitative, because I understand in the first place I was once a student like they are now. That's why I need to regulate and of course prove to them that I am worthy. All right. So in conclusions, I could say based on the empirical evidences that I am showing to you, okay, we teachers should guide our students to carry out SRL according to the characteristics of the discipline. So if you are teaching now the subject, even if it is not your major, it's normal po. Learn to accept and love, because that is what we call quality education, and there's always what we call in the long run, or you have a long way to go, because I was once a commandant. Ako po ay araling panlipunan, and according to academic conditions, number 2, choose appropriate SRL learning materials and methods. I experienced that one when I taught in college, in Brightic Interface College. Even if I am araling panlipunan, I taught Filipino subjects, UMS, sari-sari po, international. So kapag UMS po, humanities, I separate the females because I let them do enrichment activity. I let them do cooking. So ito po ay culinary arts, dahil art po kasi humanities, and I let the male do the karate. So yun po ay martial arts. Dahil pareho po arts, pagkatapos ng karate namin, of course, kinain na namin ang luto ng mga female students. So that's how I regulate, because I am new in this subject, and how would let my students appreciate, okay, this course, even if they are college. Because if you let them really employ the principles of teaching and learning with very strict evaluation, marami po ang babagsak. So remember, okay, that they are also humans and they are not robots. Number 3, SRL models provide a very useful description of what good learners do. But in our case, we have to apply this one. It's not only attending, it should be application. And there is still much to be learned about self-regulated learning, about how our students learn to become self-regulated learners, about how we as teachers or as faculty can help our students to develop SRL. And these are the suggested readings. If you want to ask some of the concepts or ideas, please consult Magister Servus, Sir Paulo. These are the suggested readings. Okay. And I would like to end my talk, and I hope you learned something from me about SRL. Daghang salamat sa inyong pagpaminaw, for your listening. And according to Galileo Galilei, you cannot teach a man anything, and you can only help him